Oh, this is Brian again. Sorry about the cutout. Ran out of battery power. So I was talking about earlier. These are the male catkins. They become the male flowers, and they usually bloom in the winter and early spring. And these are the female flowers. These will be what become the pine cone-like structures that come out like this. So there are quite a few white alders planted around here. Got a lot of nice trees here. Yeah, and I said before, used to be sweetgum trees planted here. Back in the day. Sure got lots of nice trees here. It's been a few years since I've been here though. Probably like 2014. I live in the area. Oh, I think this is a Chinese fringe tree, I think. I think this is canariensis. Retusis or sinensis, I think. Not sure, but it's in the olive family. That's like a fringe tree. Once in a while, you'll see them planted here. It's kind of weird. Not weird, but not very usual. Beautiful trees, though. White flowers in the spring. Find all the time here. Cork-Oak bipinata, Chinese flame tree. Extremely common here. Another deciduous tree. And when it's cold enough, they can get nice yellow fall color. They're very late to shed their leaves. That's what they look like. Rounded profiles, and they get these little papery seed capsules, and that's where I started with the Sweetgums in part 1. Unfortunately, I didn't get to a battery in time, but yeah, Chinese flame tree called Cork-Oak bipinata. Kind of a small, relatively small tree. Open, broad crown, winter deciduous, sometimes very late, very tardy deciduous. Leaves in December and January, and sometimes the new batch comes in, usually late March, early April. That's what the seed capsules look like. They're papery, they're very papery, and there's a little dark brown seed inside of them. Kind of look like bougainvillea flower bracts a little bit. So, and now to a more subtropical, tropical tree with another fox squirrel. A little fox squirrel right there. There's a little guy. That's a male, I think. You get really close to them. Look at that. Are you a male or female? I think it's a male. You see these fox squirrels around here a lot in these parks. Obviously not very timid, not very docile. Probably waiting for me to feed him a crumb, but I don't have any food with me. Plus, I don't think they really appreciate people feeding the squirrels in parks. I don't know if that's true here, but yeah, that's a fox squirrel. Again, it's not native. It's not native here, but in I think it's native to the eastern half of the United States or North America, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I forget, it's one subspecies of it. I think it's a subspecies of fox squirrel. But I've had them come up to my apartment, and they'll eat the nuts and seeds and everything that are around there. We used to actually feed them peanuts and stuff, and then the squirrel would come for them. But it looks like it might be eating a fig from one of these guys here. Rustyleaf Fig, Ficus rubiginosa. The underside of it kind of has that rusty color. So yeah, come here and check out the trees. Oh, speaking of which, got a couple more to point out before I let it go. Got a lot of younger coast live oaks here, and a couple mature ones too, but I plant a lot of coast live oaks here. And then here's a close relative of one of the trees I mentioned, two of the trees I mentioned, Aleppo and Canary Island Pine. See, these are Canary Island Pines. This, I believe, is an Afghan Pine, Pinus eldarica. There's a little confusion of the taxonomical details of this tree, but as you can tell, it's a close relative of the Aleppo Pine. Cones are quite similar, and they're usually quite small, and they don't have really a big prickle. They don't really have a prickle at all at the end of their scales. But another name I've heard is Pinus brutea. It's often they call this the Afghan Pine. I guess from the Middle East, and quite similar in certain ways to the Aleppo Pine, as I pointed out. It's a two-needle pine, like Pinus halepensis, and the cones are very similar. I'll show you again, and I'm going to go back to that Aleppo Pine so you can see the similarities. Here's the cone, just about ripened. And then the Aleppo Pine, I gotta walk over towards it, it's on the other side. But since I'm talking about it, let's go back to it. If you noticed, those Afghan pines were a little more formal in profile, a little more conical, like your typical piney shape, for whatever that's worth. Your stereotypical pine shape. Of course, Aleppo pines are very irregular in the sense of what a quote-unquote typical pine is supposed to look like. Guess I'll have to go around. Let's see if I get to some closed cones. Oh boy. Again, this is a two-needle pine. Here's an open cone right here. See, the cone scales are very similar, almost identical. Size is very similar, and the color, texture, of the foliage is pretty much the same. They're also in the pinaster group of pines. Let's see if there's a closed cone that fell. Sometimes you can get a good look at those. But you saw the color of the scales. The color and texture of the scales are basically identical. Basically. But then again, Afghan pines tend to be more upright and more of a narrow crown, sometimes more typical. If you've ever been to Knott's Berry Farm in Buena Park, the neighboring city, those upright trees with the short needles are most likely Afghan pines. I don't see any mature specimens of Afghan pines, but you basically get what I mean. They tend to be more upright, more narrow crowned, like the Canary Island pines. But that's just a small sample of the trees here. There are other trees here too. And we used to have, we got ginkgo trees. Let's see if I can get up to a ginkgo tree, and it's showing some fall color. And I'm about the fall color. I just don't like to film when there are a lot of people around. So I'm gonna get kind of quiet. Bear with me. I'm gonna go up to a ginkgo tree if I can get up close to it without getting too close to people. Here's a ginkgo tree. This tree with the yellow leaves. Next stop will be the ginkgo tree. Lombardy Poplar, Populus nigra italica. Beautiful ginkgo tree. Ginkgo biloba. So, it's a ginkgo tree. And it's in its own family, the Ginkgoaceae. It's a very ancient lineage of gymnosperm, in other words. Not flowering. So, although it's not a conifer, it's more closely related to the conifers. So it's not a pine, it's not a true conifer, but it is also a gymnosperm. Alright, some more Afghan pines right here. And there's another relative over here too. So I'm here, may as well point it out. So here we are. You see the Afghan pines are not quite as irregular, a little more upright. Here's another Afghan pine. I'm starting to plant these a lot more out here too. And now we have another relative, the venerable Italian stone pine, Pinus pinea. Pretty common out here. You can see it's already starting to get its rounded shape. When they're really young, they might be a little conical, or a little more, might have a little bit more of a narrow profile. And when they get older, they form that big round shaped crown. Yeah, It's another two-needle pine, and it's in the pinaster group, just like the Afghan, Canary Island, and Aleppo pines. So these are actually related. There is the potential for them to hybridize, I believe, with these Afghan pines. And then here's a type of a conifer. That's not closely related to anything here. And it's in the podocarp family, Podocarpaceae. Afrocarpus gracilior, formerly known as Podocarpus gracilior, from I believe South Africa. They call it Fern-Pine. It's not a pine, believe me. It's not a pine. And it gets these little round plum-like seeds that look like fruit, but they're not fruit. It's a conifer. It's a gymnosperm. There are more of them planted across the street there. And you got more London planes there. And this is it. Lots of tall, beautiful London planes that have been around here for decades. Lots of beautiful trees here. Over there, those rounded trees, those are Tipuana tipus, called Tipuana trees. That'll pretty much do it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it and found it informative to help identify some of our urban trees here, planted here in Southern California. I will see you on my next video, hopefully very soon, maybe with some native spotlight on tree videos. See you on the next one. Thanks for watching.